What is the economic burden of SMA, if you can, in this country, direct and indirect?
I think it largely depends on the type of SMA. We just heard that it was, there's 4 types. And type 1, again, these children usually don't live, unfortunately, for very long. So now with Nucinrin, these children hopefully are living longer. But we have to think about the cost of the therapy. Is it impaired survival or unimpaired survival? I think that especially gene therapy is going to give us tremendous promise, but we probably need registry data that helps us all understand the sort of direct cost impact as well as indirect cost impact.
But you know what I hear when I hear we have to collect registry data? You tell me if this has some resonance with your groups. You say, my kid's sick now. And I hear that there's something that may benefit my kid now. And they come back with, well, we're going to collect data, and maybe in 5 years we'll have enough cases to show this might work. What's the response from that side, from the parent side?
Yeah, it's not a welcome.
Not a happy moment.
A welcome message in that moment. You know, registry and natural history study data is very important long term to be able to do research and develop therapies for disease states. In this particular case with SMA, there is a treatment there that parents want to get their hands on in the moment. You know, with the Orphan Drug Act, despite its challenges, it has allowed many more therapies to come to market for rare diseases when there wasn't as much promise prior to that. It's interesting because still 95% of rare diseases don't have a therapy, an FDA-approved therapy. And so, you know, prior to having a therapy, you're just desperate for one. And then when you actually do have one, you have different challenges, which is the cost and access.
But she's going to say, you have to modify that sentence. I'm going to speak for you for just a moment, if I may. You say, when you actually do have one, and I hear this little voice saying, prove it. Prove it. You prove it, we'll pay for it. The problem is proving it takes time, right?
I think not just time, but also these are rare diseases, so it's logistically difficult to set up some sort of a research trial to actually study this in a meaningful
powered
way.
trial requires numbers.
Yeah, and then you need biomarkers that are reliable in terms of the impact of your therapies. And in rare diseases, a lot of times this is highly challenging. You know, if you have a disease like SMA, which is progressing at different rates in different people and affecting different aspects of their function, how do you come up with one-size-fits-all trial that is going to measure that effectively across the spectrum? And so then what we end up in the clinic having as a concern is that there'll be a research trial that has some data associated with it, but it's in a very targeted population that has been pre-selected to be a group that is going to show change in the natural history of the disease within a certain window of time, but also a potential response to a therapeutic intervention that is in a very measurable way. But then that gets approved in a different way in terms of the label, and then we're trying to decide which of our patients actually could benefit from that therapeutic option without actually having any research experience to base that expectation on in some of the groups that are not like the group that was studied, and that is a huge challenge.
That's a challenge with rare diseases, right?
Exactly, and there lies the conundrum, because you may have the FDA indication, you may have a very tight clinical trial, and initially we are going to pay for it, but we're going to look to the evidence, we're going to look to the trial design. And so we also have a challenge, which is the payment methodology. And I think in this country,
what does that mean?
We probably need innovative ways, not just to pay one lump sum. Let's say that's $4 million for a gene therapy. What if it doesn't work? So how do we maintain affordability over not only one condition, but potentially 40 that may be coming with gene therapies? So I completely agree that we need something today or when these therapies come out, but we also need the assurance that these will be the cures that we're all anticipating.
But you know what parents are going to say? They're going to say, please, there's some hope here. There previously wasn't any hope. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's all I've got. I'm begging you, give this to my child. $4 million in a zillion-dollar economy? Come on.
I think in the end, it begs the need for better data and that we have the ability perhaps not to just pay based on hope, but really maybe amortize the payments so that you pay as you go, and if the treatment is working, the payment is there.
You know, again, I'll put one more nail in this one. Hope, I've got hope. That's worth a lot. Pay for hope. Maybe it's a good idea. If it doesn't work, we'll stop. But for now, it's all these parents have. No?
Well, I think paying for hope when $4 million could be used for education, for vaccines, for so many other areas. I think it's a tough challenge for the U.S. and our society to be able to draw the line on what do we pay for and what we don't pay for.
We also have to emphasize that do everything isn't always the answer for everybody either. That once you give a realistic portrayal of what somebody might be facing in terms of a certain circumstance, they may make the decision not to pursue certain interventions and other things, and that's still a legitimate choice in our society, an individualized decision.
So you do occasionally decide not to treat?
Yes.
Okay, this is not going where we want it to go. Maybe the best option is nothing.
Right, and that is an option that's presented and discussed when people face these kind of diseases.